my healing journey on social media has brought a lot of questions, and sometimes it's really difficult to get to every single question that is asked. We're going to be doing a medical miracle series. This series is going to be really all about my personal experience with not only scleroderma, but my journey to unmedicated remission, so that you can know just more of the specifics about, hey, what did I experience? How did I do this? And how healing can be possible for you. Hi, my name is Gianna. I am a clinical nutritionist, a connective tissue condition specialist, and a scleroderma warrior who is 9 years in remission. And today we're going to be talking about how this journey even started when it came to remission, and what happened, and how did my life change in an instant when I decided that my health and my life was worth fighting for. Now, a little bit of a backstory here, and if you have questions about, this time between 12 and nearly 23 years old, feel free to share these questions in the comments, because to be honest, more episodes are going to be coming up about this topic in particular, and I want to make sure that I'm answering the questions that you actually have. And so we're going to skip the scleroderma journey here real quick, and we're going to fast forward to the part where I had scleroderma for 11 years. And during this time, medication was truly the only thing I was doing during this season. I was fighting for my health solely with medication. And the way that I would describe this is truly like an emotional roller coaster. There was no point in time where I felt safe in my body. And over this decade-long trial, fight, battle, I lost myself in the process. And so we find ourselves at 22, nearly 23 years old. This is like a week before my birthday. And I looked in the mirror and I could not recognize myself anymore. And it wasn't because I couldn't recognize myself on a physical level, which, I mean, to be honest, I could look back at those pictures. I'll show you one right here. I look very, very different than I do today. And it was really on an identity level. The girl that I saw in the mirror was fully consumed by scleroderma. I would go to the pool and people would, comment on my skin. I would wake up in pain. I was in school at University of Florida and I was writing essays and I would have hand pain and I couldn't think. And so my ADHD was so bad. It was every element of my life. Don't even get me started on my mental health and my relationship with my body and my food. My whole life from morning to night was impacted by scleroderma in some way, shape, or form, whether it was directly associated with symptoms or a lingering association with them. My life purpose, my life story was being written for me. And at 22, nearly 23 years old, I started losing the will to fight. And so when I was looking at myself in the mirror, I started not really seeing my life worth fighting for anymore, because the future of my life felt so bleak. And despite taking medications and eating fairly clean for a college student and working out 3 to 4 times a week, it still wasn't enough. So instead of fighting harder and more strategically, this is likely similar to where you are today. I instead told myself that I was broken, that I was too far gone, and nothing would help anyways. So what's the point of putting more energy into my health when there's no cure, there's no hope? There's just darkness. And so when people ask me, how did you start this journey to remission? How did you get this new spirit of life and fight and warrior within you? I'm going to be honest with you. It was not me. It was through prayer and through a higher power. And so this might not resonate with everybody, and that is okay. And it is my responsibility to share with you transparently how my life was marked by darkness, and in a series of moments, it started to be marked by hope. And this was the beginning of not only my journey to unmedicated remission, but also my journey to becoming what I have now been deemed a medical miracle. And so often when people think of both miracles and remission, they think of a spontaneous moment. They think of a moment where everything changes in one sweep. And that wasn't necessarily the case for me. My hope is that, with this story, that is a small snippet of my testimony, you start to see how your journey to remission could look more like this. And your prayer for a miracle can also look something like this. And so that same day that I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself anymore, there was a part of me that spiritually cracked. There was a part of me, like I said before, that I started to just perceive my life as not worth fighting for. And it was a really, really dark place for me because I was so young. I was at the University of Florida, a place that had opportunity, truly sweating from the walls. And yet I was living in this constant state of despair. And so by the end of that day, I quite literally fell to my knees. I mean, truly, in the most dramatic, heartfelt way, I was in my apartment all alone because my roommate wasn't there, thank God. And I started truly praying a prayer of despair. Now, one thing I do want to shed some light on is I didn't consider myself a Christian at this time. I didn't consider myself someone who was a Jesus follower. I didn't consider myself someone who was faith-based. I actually considered myself more spiritual, where I would be like more sensitive to vibes and auras. And so this act of prayer was truly this surrender through pure spiritual desperation. And during this prayer, I deeply just kind of begged God, if you're out there, if you exist, please give me a life worth fighting for. If you give me a life worth fighting for, I will serve you for the rest of my life. And I just cried and I wept and I was in what I can only describe as a fetal position. And in a moment, this despair that was weighing quite literally, like physically on my shoulders to the point where I was in fetal position on the ground, lifted. And I've never experienced anything like this since, up until that point and ever since. This lift like if you have ever been in despair, you know how physically it weighs on you. I mean, you literally can't even move. It's a physical manifestation of a spiritual, a spiritual experience. And so when that lifted, that desperation lifted, I felt this lightness come into my spirit. And it was all I could describe is that it was light. It was light and I could breathe. And in a series of moments, I got my first vision. Now, stick with me here, okay? This vision I could only describe as like a daydream. It was a daydream that I saw with my third eye, and it was vines and fruit and flowers and nature, and it was all kind of swirling around me. And logically, I had no idea what was happening, but emotionally or spiritually, I completely understood the assignment. The assignment was fighting for my health in a way that I've never fought it before, and doing it in a way where I step into faith every step of the way, and believing that healing was on the other side of the journey. That was the miracle. In that moment, I was not healed. In that moment, my scleroderma was not any better than it was before. In fact, I was actually in one of the worst flares I've ever experienced in my life, because scleroderma affected most of it started on my legs, it grew on up to my abdomen. And so I was really good at hiding it. But at this point, it actually started going onto my arm. And so I no longer felt like I could hide it anymore. And so I was still very much within this flare, and yet my spirit and my mind were completely different. Now, there's a choice that I had to make after this experience. And I truly believe that this choice is what we all can make. And it's the choice to step out in faith and believing that your body is meant to heal. In some way, shape, or form, okay? In some way, shape, or form, your body was designed to heal. And we know this. You don't need all the answers. What you just need to know and believe is that your body was designed to heal. And stepping one step forward can make all the difference. And that's what I did. And so what I know to be true is that most people don't start their healing journey and their journey to remission with a truly come to Jesus moment, right? With a tangible experience with God. But what we do all have to make is a decision to act. Because truly, if I experienced this whole thing and didn't do anything with it, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today. I had to put myself into action without having all the answers. And so if you receive this story, this testimony, God bless you. And if you're looking for something that's like more tangible and concrete and like a next step, it's act. One step, literally. And I want you to take it right now, like right in this moment. Not, oh, okay, like let me just step into action later today. No, this is your sign to take action right now, to decide that you're going to act. And so it would be horrible for me to not give you an opportunity to act, opportunity to step into this new belief system that not only is your body designed to heal, but better health is within your reach. Even if you've had scleroderma for over 10 years, even if you had lupus for over 20 years, or even if you just got diagnosed yesterday, better health can be within your reach. And if you are looking for ways to start healing alongside medication, which is something that I actually did in the beginning, that's actually what I did. I started healing alongside medication. I want for you to have those same resources that I wish that I had access to at the very beginning in 2013. And so this resource is going to be free for you. You can download instantly now with the link in the podcast notes. And you can start taking tangible steps to fighting for your life so that you can take back what autoimmune disease has stolen from you. I hope that this podcast was helpful. I hope that this podcast shed light and the power of faith and how, gosh, when we're talking about at least my experience with remission, I cannot separate the role of Jesus and healing. So let's speak for what it is. And no, this is not a miracle that is set apart for the special few. This is a miracle that is within your reach. That is truly what I believe to the core of my being. If I could be as sick as I was for nearly 12 years and experience this, and then now I help women who have been sick for 20 years, 25 years, they're in their 60s, they're in their 40s, they're in their 20s. There is hope. And I really hope that this podcast just shed a little bit of light on the hope that you stand on today. If you have not yet, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast. This allows you to stay in the loop as new episodes drop every Tuesday. And if you know someone with a connective tissue disease, feel free to share this with them. The power of hope truly is infectious in the most beautiful and miraculous way. And you never know how something like this can actually change someone's life. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye.